Greetings, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to take a second to talk about how to make a good selection of a community for your upcoming sequence of community-based assignments. To refresh, on 226, your community speech is due. That's a speech where, in a nutshell, you outline for the audience as clearly, as succinctly, and as memorably, vividly as possible what are the reasons why the group of people you have chosen are together as a community. What are the rituals that they share? What are the traditions that they share? What are the secret handshakes that they share, or songs that they all collectively know? Outfits that they commonly wear? History that they look fondly upon? You sort of get the idea here. What makes a random group of people into a community? The second speech, which is due shortly thereafter, is called the division speech. The first speech is about the ties that bind these people together, thesis-driven, organized account of what are the ties that bind these folks together. The second speech takes an opposite turn, which is what are they arguing about? What are they fighting about? Pick one issue that really divides portions of the community against each other. Portion X of the community says that X is true. Portion Y of the community says that a whole different set of arguments is true. They're disagreeing about a central issue. The final assignment in this sequence is the action speech paper, where you do a speech on one side of the controversy, persuasively arguing that X is true, and do a paper on the other side of the controversy, persuasively arguing that Y is true. This is what ancient rhetoricians and teachers in law school, when they're teaching the skill of arguing both sides of a case, call the dissoi logoi, or the ability to be so argumentatively flexible that you can persuasively argue for both sides of the case. But the question is, how do you effectively select a topic, not just for one speech, but for 3 speeches in one paper, for an entire sequence of assignments? Well, that's what we want to talk about today. So step 1 is to realize that you're not just making a selection of a topic for this one speech, but instead that you're really making a topic selection for 3, 4 assignments if you count the action speech paper as 2 different assignments. So you're making a selection, and so one of the things that's essential here is to try to start at the end of the semester with the action speech paper where you argue both sides of the case and work your way back. So it's not just a question of whether or not the topic you're selecting, the community you're selecting, is going to work for the speech that's due on 226, but is it also going to work looking ahead of time to the end of the semester? I've had several students over the course of the several years I've been teaching this assignment who make an amazing choice for the first topic, for the community assignment, but then that topic doesn't have the legs to get all the way through to the end because maybe the community they've selected isn't really driven by a central controversy. Maybe that controversy is really hard to research, or maybe that controversy is really hard to argue both sides of the case on. Remember, we're talking about a lengthy speech and a lengthy paper at the end of the course. And so if the arguments for one side of the controversy are really flimsy or hard to articulate, then you're going to struggle to write that speech, to write that paper. To give an example, many students in the past have wanted to select the Greek community on college campuses for their community sequence of assignments. Now, that first speech is a great speech because the rituals and traditions that unite the Greek community across college campuses and at the College of Charleston are rich, and they are researchable, and they lend themselves to an effective speech. But think about if you chose, let's say, hazing as a controversy. Well, there's not published research, there's not expert testimony demonstrating that hazing, which is illegal, is good. And so if you're at the end of the semester supposed to write a paper or write a speech saying hazing is good and then hazing is bad, the hazing bad section of the assignment is going to be rich and easier to argue. The hazing good part is going to be tough and questionably legal, right? And so you're going to find yourself in a position where you haven't chosen a good topic because the controversy itself is not arguable on both sides, if you're following me. So how do you make a good topic selection instead? First things first, work your way back, as I just said. Second, make it researchable. Make sure it's big enough to be researchable. So instead of picking, let's say, the high school you went to or the small town that you grew up in, pick small towns or pick high school students in general as larger communities, as larger demographics. That'll make it much easier to research a controversy. Right? And then finally, you want to make sure that when you make your controversy selection, your community selection, that you clearly have a controversy in mind, that you at least thought through step 2 and step 3. I've got a community, but what is dividing this community? And if you can't clearly answer that question, maybe think of a new community. Let me give you a couple of examples of communities that I think would work well or that I would choose. And one of the first places to start is just start with yourself. Start with your own interests. What do you want to be when you grow up? What jobs are you interested in? What hobbies are you interested in? What hobbies do you explore now? What sports are you interested in? Do you have any causes or beliefs that you're particularly passionate about? Start there. You're likely a member of or adjacent to lots of communities already, and those communities are going to be tightly knit groups of people, but they're also going to be driven by a controversy or two that would lend themselves really well to this speech. So, to give an example, where do I live? I've lived in Charleston since 2008. I'm a local now. I'm basically a native at this point, and I know what makes Charlestonians pretty well based on 12, 13, 14 years of experience living here. So for the first speech, if I just wanted to do my community on Charlestonians, I would do a speech on how do you know if you're a Charlestonian? Things only Charlestonians know, things only Charlestonians have experienced. There's not too many people in places like Nashville or Los Angeles who are getting stuck in traffic behind horse and buggies on a day-to-day basis, if you catch my drift there, right? So I really pull out what makes Charleston a very unique place to live, a very unique group of people, and then explore that over the course of the speech. Second speech, the division speech, what are Charlestonians divided by? I think I could pick two-ish issues here. One, Charlestonians are really divided over the issue of the horse and buggies. Lots of people saying it's cruel and abusive to the animals. Lots of people saying it slows down traffic in the city, but then lots of tourists and lots of locals also are quite enamored with the horse and buggy carriages. There's also quite a big local controversy over cruise ships and whether Charleston should be a cruise port. Lots of arguments for, lots of arguments against, both economically, culturally, and environmentally. That would really lend itself there as well. All right, so that's where I live. What am I interested in? Well, one of my hobbies, and has been since I went to college at the University of Georgia, go Dogs, is college football. So I could pick college football as an interest group, as a community. Since I've been to Georgia and I've been to games around the South, I know what a college tailgate looks like. I know the kinds of songs that are sung, the kinds of things that are eaten, the kinds of things that are drank, and then the kinds of things that happen during the game itself. So it would be pretty easy, I think, to paint a rich picture of college football fans as a community for my first assignment. What are they divided by for that second speech? I can think of two issues, at least two issues. College football fans are pretty argumentative, so you might be able to find many more than two, but I'll just pick two for now. One, the issue of paying players is a massive issue that divides college football fans against other college football fans, and that's really the key here. You're not picking a community that is divided against another community. You're picking a community that is arguing amongst itself, right? This is not Republicans against Democrats. This would be Republicans arguing against other Republicans, Democrats arguing against other Democrats. College football fans are arguing about paying players. College football fans are also arguing about the concussion crisis, the safety of the sport, whether the safety of the game requires that there be rule changes or keep it as is because people know exactly what they're signing up for, and lots of percentages of the country quite enjoy the sport. If I'm politically inclined, I gave my Republican and Democrat example quite briefly, but if I'm politically inclined, let's say I'm a libertarian, I could make an argument for libertarians as a specific community with a specific set of beliefs. They go to a specific set of conferences, they read a specific set of publications, they really are enamored with a group of thinkers, let's say Friedrich Hayek and Ludwig von Mises, and many others who are the patron saints of libertarianism. So that's what that first speech would be about. The second speech, I can pick a policy issue or a theoretical issue, let's say the minimum wage, that really divides libertarians. And then finally, the action speech paper arguing persuasively on both sides of the case. So in the end, if you're stuck, if you're trying to think of a community, I would try to break it down by what you're interested in, but also you can break it down through a few other categories. Let's say like professions. What professions are you interested in? I've had students in the past who have done lawyers, who have done specific kinds of doctors like neurosurgeons, neurobiologists, and I've also had students who have picked teachers and specifically special ed teachers. You could narrow it down by geography, so you can pick members of a locality, of a state, of a region, let's say Southerners or New Englanders, or of course, members of an entire nation, say Americans or Canadians, and so forth. Those are really good, but I would caution there about going too small. If you pick a really small town, or a really small or obscure region of the country or a different country, then it's going to be really hard to research that. And you want to make sure that this is easily researchable and that there's a clear controversy that divides the community you've chosen. I think you could pick by cause or belief. So I've had students in the past pick entire religions. Islam, I've had them pick subsections or denominations of Christianity, let's say Presbyterians or Methodists. And I've had students who have picked protest movements and cause-based movements like Black Lives Matter, all of which are great topics, rich topics that are easily researched and lend themselves well to great speeches and papers. And finally, I think you can pick by hobby or interest group. You can pick hunters, you can pick surfers. I've had students in the past pick ballet dancers and other kinds of interest groups like that. So the world's really your oyster here. Think creatively about picking a topic that you can really make your own, that you know something about, or that you'd really like to know much more about, because this is a topic you're going to carry it forward through the rest of the semester. And feel free at any point to reach out to me with any questions or ideas you want to float past me. Have a good one, y'all. Talk soon.